welcome, Sarah. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
So have we, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Yay! Now, you got started 2005 with Smart Bitches Trashy Books.
Yes, back in the dark ages.
Back in the dark ages.
Before Tumblr, before Twitter.
Oh, it was before Tumblr even, yeah.
Well, now I have to fact check myself. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. 2005 is back there.
2007 was Tumblr, yeah. Wow. Oh, dude. So I'm old. Hi, good morning.
What got you started to build this robust community that you've got now?
I never expected it to be what it is now. And every day I'm like incredibly just shocked and grateful that there are people around the world who want to hang out with me and talk about romance. That's amazing. I taught myself HTML in 1997 when I was graduating college because I didn't want to write another English paper. And so I went to the English department and was like, tell you what, I'll learn HTML and then I'll build the English department website and then I don't have to write a term paper. And they were all like, that sounds great. And I was like, great, I don't have to write a term paper. And then I learned to code and I was like, oh, I should have written a paper. This is way hard. And this was like back in the days of, oh my God, the site was so ugly. Like there was a little thing in the corner and then there was a title and then there was a menu down the side and then there was just, it was so very basic. I mean, it was late 90s. But I graduated with this nice knowledge of how to code things, started my own online journal because this was before blogging software. I don't think blogging was a word yet.
Yeah.
And that is as pretentious as it sounds, very long form, deep navel gazing. I ended up finding blogging software, which was great because they would code your archives for you and date everything. It was like magic. And that was all, I don't even remember what language that was. It wasn't HTML. I think it was more Java maybe. I don't remember, but it was way beyond my understanding. So I was like, I'll just install this and let it do all the work. Yay! I ended up meeting Candy, who co-founded the site with me in 2005 through my personal weblog where I was writing about like making my own cat food because I didn't have children back then. So I had all this time and I made my own cat food. I'm that person. So she and I started emailing about how much we loved romance and how much we were tired of people giving us crap for it. And I don't remember which one of us said it, but we were like, we should just start a review blog. Okay, sure. What are we going to call it? I don't know. How about Smart Bitches Who Love Trashy Books? And I was like, okay, that domain is like totally available. So let's just do that. And I really didn't think anyone was going to read it. I thought it was going to be me and my husband and Candy and one of her friends. And it would be like 4 total people. And as I've said many times, I drastically underestimated 2 very important things. One, how often romance readers feel isolated and that they don't have anyone to talk to. I mean, even last week, I was on an NPR show called The 1A, and somebody left them a message about how they don't really think romance is that popular simply because they feel like it's taboo and they never see anybody reading it. And I was like, okay, first of all, you should totally read it. Second of all, contact me for Recs. And third, I promise we're all reading it. We just don't talk about it in public because we get crap for it. I underestimated how many people there are, and there still are, who don't talk about it to friends that they love the genre. I also underestimated how often authors Google their own names. And that was the source of a lot of our viral traffic. Like, what did you see what they said? Yeah, I still get that too. I did not expect it to turn into what it has become, but I'm enormously thankful every day that people come hang out and talk about books with me.
Because what better thing is there to spend the day talking about books?
Yeah, totally.
Seriously.
Seriously, it's like my whole job, and I'm like, wow, this is my job. This is amazing. I love it.
Sarah, can you give us an idea for any of our listeners who haven't visited your site before? What can they expect when they log on to Smart Bitches Trashy Books?
So, the original design of the website was like Pepto-Bismol pink because we wanted to make it very clear just for the color scheme, this is not safe for work. We are often not safe for work, but we tell you first. Most of the time, we are giving you very long, detailed, critical reviews of romance fiction, and that spans all the different permutations of the genre. We also talk about things that are relevant to romance readers who are mostly women. And it's really interesting. I am used to talking about romance, but I've been doing it for so long operating on a language binary because romance is a genre that centers female experience and female heroines and the, self-actualization of women, which is really important. But how to incorporate that message into multiple expressions of gender is not something that I have linguistically worked out smoothly yet. So when I stutter over this, or if I use too harsh of a binary term, I just want to apologize up front. I am trying to figure out how to say this in a way that makes sense. But what we are talking about most of the time are issues that are relevant and of interest to romance readers who are often mostly women and writing about extremely intimate subjects. So because we're talking about sexuality and emotions, vulnerability, and relationships, we also talk about things that are very intimate. Otherwise, we talk about sexuality, personal health. We have a regular column where we talk about sex toys that you can try. Amanda is super great at writing those. She's really wonderful. We also have a podcast. Big ups for podcasting. Yay! And we do daily books on sale. And one of my favorite features is Help a Bitch Out, where if you can remember the name of a book or the name of a character in some random scene, but you can't remember the title or the author, the community can find it for you. It's really kind of amazing. They know everything.
I love that you do that because
oh my God,
I know that I've talked to B and Leah Koch at the Ripped Bodice, and they've talked about these customers who come in and go, well, the cover was pink and the heroine was named Mary, and I read it 15 years ago. What is that book?
Yep. Uh-huh. Okay, I am that customer because I don't remember words. I just remember the pictures. And I'll be like, she was standing with her back exposed. She had a yellow dress on. I think it was historical because the skirt was really big and something was blue. And like I could just see the glazed, oh gosh, expression on booksellers and librarians' faces. I am that customer. Sorry. But that's why the feature existed, because that's all of my brain. And I get like dozens of Habbo requests in my inbox. I have solved them on my own, like maybe 3 total times, maybe, possibly 2 more, probably 2. But yeah, it's a rare thrill when you know which one it is.
Now, blogs come and go so much in this genre.
Yep.
People start them up and then, 2, 3, 5 years later they crash. What's kept you going year after year? Because you're in your 13th now.
Yeah, site had a bat mitzvah. It was pretty great. I wrote a devar and everything. And I gave a version of that devar at my synagogue, but I had to edit it because I could not explain to this community of people, like, what about romance tropes? I had to like renovate it severely because I would have been like, no, okay, so let me explain my website. Yes, this is the name of it. I'm really sorry. Everybody chill. What keeps me going? I love the community that hangs out with us. I don't take myself very seriously at all. You might have noticed. I don't take a lot of things seriously. I do take the community very seriously. And I take the sanctity and the safety of the space and the comment space very seriously. I love that it is a location on the internet where people, as they say, I don't feel like I need to take a nuclear detox shower after I read the comments. And I'm like, yes, I know. It's so great. That is the part that keeps me going, that there are people who continually find the site and say, I had no idea you were here. How have I not known about this? Oh my gosh, I found the people who read the same things I read and love the same things I love. And I can't wait to talk about that. So it's the community that keeps me going, and the fact that I haven't read a book yet and thought to myself, I really don't have anything to say about this. I always have something to say about a book that I read, and I always want to talk about the books I'm reading. So I'm very fortunate that I get to do that.
That's awesome. I love that last little bit, that there's always something you want to say about the books you're reading.
Always. I haven't met a romance novel yet that I didn't want to say something about.
That's very cool. What are your favorite tropes?
Oh, boy.
Here we go. She's got the list ready.
Oh boy. I realized recently that a lot of the origin of the things that I deeply, deeply love can be traced back to the original Beauty and the Beast television show with Ron Perlman.
Oh,
like, even my favorite, right? Even my favorite piece of classical music, I was rewatching it, and there's a scene where, like, Vincent is sadly in some cavern underneath the New York Philharmonic listening to a symphony, because he can't go out in public because he's a beast, and he's in this indescribably weirdly massive underground system of caves under Manhattan, which just can't possibly exist. And they're all dressed like they're going to Ren Fair. Like, I love this show. You watch it, you just got to be like, all right, I'm in. That's fine. I accept all of this. But he's listening to the symphony, and I'm like, that's where I found this piece of music that I love, because I saw it on Beauty and the Beast when I was like 12, and that's a very formative age. So I love Beauty and the Beast. I love internal conflict more than external conflict. I'm much more interested in emotional conflict that keeps people apart because of who they are at that moment. And then I love forced proximity that isn't life-threatening. Like, I'm a big fan of it's snowing and we're stuck. Like, if you have heat and food,
one of my favorites ever. I love that.
Right? Like, it's not like there's like grave danger. You have soup, blankets, and somebody cool to talk to. This is great. You just can't leave. Like, first proximity by snow is perfection. I love it. So those are some of my favorites. Oh, I also love grumpy, taciturn, caretaking characters of any gender. Like, and the thing that always hooks me is I don't want to like you. I don't want to like you. Oh, I can't think. Stop thinking about your hair. Damn it. That's one of my favorites too. I can't stop thinking about your hair. Damn it is like the perfect trope.
Now, earlier when you were speaking about some of what the website has to offer, you mentioned the podcast, Smart Bitches.
Smart Podcast,
sorry.
Trashy Books.
I always get the name wrong.
Okay, we are like 5 times, so it's not your fault.
We are big fans of the show. I think it's hilarious and informative. What made you decide to dip your toe into the audio waters?
I always wanted my own radio show, and I didn't want to be a journalist. That's really it. I had an internship with the LA Times during the 1996 presidential convention or Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and I learned at that point that I didn't want to be a journalist. Like, that was not my calling. But I really loved radio. I always loved radio. I thought being on the radio was so great. That's my dog. I apologize. That's Zeb. I love the idea of radio, and I always wanted my own radio show. And I thought, well, I'll just do it on my own. And the podcast is actually very old. Our first episodes were 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then we took a hiatus and came back once I figured out how to do it on my own. And I love doing it. I love having my own little radio station broadcast about romance novels. And I love how much I've learned doing it. Like, haven't you just sort of look at all the things you've learned to do and be like, wow, that was impressive.
Yeah. And it continues to evolve.
Yeah. Yes, there's no limit of what you can do with the medium. And I like to say that voice is very intimate. I think a lot of people underestimate that. When you are in someone's eardrums and you're talking directly to them about a subject that they're passionate about, that is a very intimate communicative experience, I think. And especially because I've been recognized for my voice. Like, I'll talk and somebody will be like, I know that voice, which is really, really weird, but super cool. I have learned a lot about how much hearing someone talk to you directly into your eardrums creates a very real connection for listeners. And it's another community that I value very much, that people will email me about things that I've talked about and share things with me that they just wanted to share with someone who they knew would understand. Even a total stranger is even more sort of liberating and safe. I love that you can do so much with the format of a podcast, and yet it's still a very fundamental old form of communication. It's still radio. It's a form of radio. It's not being transmitted by radio distribution, but it's still like a vocal conversation happening with you or to you. And that's a really old form of broadcast. Like, it's so cool.
I like what you said about being able to hear someone and the impact that has. To have authors on whose primary connection to readers outside of books has tended to be the blog tour.
Yes.
Now people can hear their authors if they can't get to a place for a signing or a convention or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's tremendous.
I think it's an excellent tool because, no matter how good a writer you are, text is still static and toneless. Like, you don't know the inflection of what's being said. You have to do that yourself when you're reading, or at least maybe that's how you read. That's how I read. I hear the things I'm reading. When you get to hear someone talk about their books, it adds a layer of understanding to the text that they've created, and it sort of creates an additional bridge between them and you as the reader. It's so great.
Mm-hmm. Now, what have you seen with LGBT romances and how they've evolved since you started the community? back in the day.
There's been no changes at all. It's exactly the same. No. So a while ago, I was contacted by an RWA chapter who were like, listen, we read your first book, which is Beyond Heaving Bosoms, which came out in 2009, 2008. I don't remember the date of my own book. Sorry, but it was, back then. And they were like, you wrote this chapter about what you thought was going to happen. And you guys said that the gay romance was going to be a big thing. And then it happened. So we want you to come and make more predictions. And I was like, oh, crap. I got lucky. I don't make predictions. I'm really bad at it. Don't ask me for lottery numbers. So I realized when I wrote about that anyone who wants to see themselves being the recipient of love and being worthy of love, who doesn't see that, will find their way into the genre, and the genre will find a way to them, because the genre is all about showing individuals as loved, right? And worthy of being loved, which is like super revolutionary. And I love how people are like, why is romance having a moment? Because it's freaking revolutionary to just say everyone gets love. Duh. Like, what? Come on. Like, we're trying to legislate everything, including that. So just being able to say, no, this person is absolutely lovable exactly the way they are. That's massive. So since we started the community, I mean, that was before male romance and gay romance became such a massive, massive community. And now you have all of these different expressions of gender and sexuality being found in the genre. I mean, I look at it the way I look at my own understanding of language. Like 4 or 5 years ago, I would not have known what cisgendered meant. It was not a term I encountered. And then I started encountering it all the time and having to Google it over and over because I couldn't quite get it. And then I was like, oh, now I understand. I get it. Yes, thank you for giving me a word for this. We have a language now to describe pieces of sexuality that I would have never have described in 2005. Like, it's not only has language evolved, but our understanding of sexuality has evolved. So that absolutely finds its way into the romance community as well. And the more we review and discuss books that showcase different ways that people experience life and sexuality and emotions, the better the genre is, because there has to be something for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, and this kind of leads to the diversity question that we wanted to talk about too. Diversity with not only race and religion, and it certainly encompasses sexual identity and sexual orientation too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And certainly your blog and the podcast have talked a lot about diversity, especially this past year. What do you think has gotten such a focus on that in these last 12 to 18 months?
I think it's because as a nation over the past, maybe 10 years, maybe a little bit more, we've also developed a language for understanding race and racial differences. I mean, even right now, it is considered threatening and dangerous to point out that someone is a white person, because white was the default. And now we have to examine our defaults for the flaws that they have. That happens with romance. We have to examine literature for the default flaws that it presents towards genre fiction. Like, it's all about self-examination. So if we are going to recognize the ways in which we are unique and singular and powerful, we also have to recognize the singular things that make us different, because that's not a bad thing. However, much like the genre also says, we all have the same emotions and the emotional experiences. Those are very similar. Falling in love with someone, or feeling attracted to someone, or just being fascinated by somebody's brain. That is something that goes beyond all of these singular boundaries. And those are the things that the genre is writing about. I think diversity needs to happen as a discussion, and inclusivity has to happen as a discussion, because if you take all the books that have ever been published and you put them in one world, so we're building one world out of all the books, that world is so white and straight. And this really weird Christianity, right? Like, it's Christian because they have Christmas. We got Christmas out the wazoo, but it's not a specific denomination of Christian. It's not Episcopalian. It's not Baptist. It's certainly not Catholic. It's not Methodist. It's this weird sort of bland, non-specific Christianity. It's so interesting to me. Like, what is it? What denomination is this? It is the romance denomination of Christianity. Now, my lane is always going to be religious diversity, because I want to see more about Jewish experience in romance. The nice thing about staying in your lane, though, is that you do come to intersections, which is great, because then you can work with other people to discuss, well, oh yeah, yes, that should also be represented. The genre needs to better resemble the community of people that reads it and the community of people that write it. As of right now, it doesn't do that enough, so it has to keep evolving in order to survive. That's it.
Well said.
Thanks.
And I think that certainly Suzanne Brockman hit on some of that at her RWA speech, too.
Whoa. I was in the very, very back of the room because I had gone to dinner with people. I don't know if you know, have you ever been to a Rita's? There are some dresses and there are some shoes. And I was wearing my daytime jeans, like the not the dark wash jeans, the light wash. I was wearing my daytime jeans and like flats and a cardigan. I was not Rita ready by a long shot. So I came late. I was like, I'll just sit here in the very back corner in the dark. And I'm like in the back, and she starts her speech, and you can see this sort of wave of people like being blown back into their chairs, like, whoa, and it's still coming, whoa. Like, it was an incredible experience to be in the room. It was incredibly electric. It was really great. And she had an outstanding just delivery. And I had a lot of admiration for the fact that RWA as an organization knew that she was going to call them out from stage. Like, they knew that is what was going to happen. And I was like, that is really, really brave to be like, yes, I am not afraid of being examined publicly for the things that we did wrong. Like, whoa, that was incredible too.
Yeah.
It is more than past time for people to feel like they are welcome and that they have an opportunity and that they feel safe in the community. And if that can't happen, then we're going to make it happen.
What was your first LGBT romance to read?
You know, you sent me these questions and I've been like, which one was it? I don't remember. I could probably go find it in the archives, which I probably should have done, but I can remember the earliest experience with a romance that was definitely male was Strawberries for Dessert by Marie Sexton.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that is a much older title. And one of the things I loved about it was that you had two men, one of whom was occupying a very traditional profession, very much in the closet, and very uncomfortable with anything that deviated from traditional and expectations, basically. And then he is set up on this date with this guy who self-describes as a twink. I don't know if that term is out of favor, but he was extremely confident in himself and he was very flamboyant and he gave zero craps. And he was very upset to be set up on this date with this guy who wouldn't stop looking at his phone. And he's like, listen, when you are ready to pay attention to me, you let me know. I'm going to leave now. And I was like, whoa, I like these two. These sound amazing. Because of course, guy number one is like, I can't stop thinking about his hair. Damn it. And he has to take the risk of breaking out of this very specific life that he's built for himself. And there's a scene later in the book. Is it okay if I spoil a scene? Is that all right?
Sure. Of course, yeah.
This is what got me right in my feels. So the second character, and I can't remember names because I'm a terrible human being. He's a wonderful cook, and he learns the recipes they're together now, of his boyfriend's father's that his late mother made. So he makes his boyfriend's late mother's favorite recipes for his father as a gift. And I was just like, oh God. Right.
That's really good.
Oh, it was so good. And, you know, you have this guy who's like super not okay with this extremely flamboyant gentleman who's like in the kitchen and what is happening. But then he gets to relive the experience of eating the food that someone who loved him would make for him. And I'm going to get teary right now thinking about it. It's another way to express intimacy that I love. It's another trope I love, food and romance. Mm-hmm. If you shouldn't read it while hungry, I'm all of it.
Do you have other favorites that you want to call out for folks?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do. So I am very quietly trying to... Okay. So I Googled Strawberries for Dessert. And of course, I got a bunch of recipes. That was dumb. All right. I'm really pleased I at least remember the author's name. So it's Jonathan and Cole. My apologies. Cole is arrogant, flamboyant, and not his type. Yes, that is why they should be together. It was a great book. All right. So now that I feel better that I remembered the names. Another book, I was actually talking about this morning on Twitter. Sarah, I think it's Dedimer, if I'm saying that wrong. I apologize. The Dark Wife, which is a lesbian retelling of Hades and Persephone with Hades as a woman. Oh, it's so good. And one of my recent favorites that I absolutely love, to the point where I did that silly thing where you take a picture of yourself as the book cover, was Edge of Glory by, I think it's Rachel Spangler. I want to say it's Rachel. I am very bad. Yeah, Rachel Spangler. Good job, brain. That is about an Olympic snowboarder and an Olympic skier. And they are both sort of at the top age of where they can still compete on a professional level. And they're both trying to get into the Olympics again, like one more time. And the skier, Elise, is coming back from a very bad injury. And the snowboarder, Corey, has this really wild reputation and was one of the earliest professional snowboarders. And that they meet at training camp. And I know that it's a very familiar trope in lesbian romance to have the ice queen. So Elise is a skier. She's like the perfect ice queen. And Corey is a snowboarder. And she's like super laid back and chill. And like, what is your problem? But she's also got a really unconventional training regimen. And so Elise starts to learn from her training to focus on balance and interruption of your path and all this cool stuff. And there's also food in that one. I have a type. I loved that book because the more I thought about it, the more I loved the idea that the way that being a professional athlete puts you in touch with your body. And there's another book, Roller Girl by Vanessa North, which is about a trans woman. And one of the things I found so great about that book, and I still think about it, she in her old life, I want to make sure I use the right language, was a professional, I want to say wakeboarder. And so here is a person, and she's talked about working out in her gym with trophies with her dead name all over them, but she won't take them down because she has this incredibly attuned relationship with her body. Even though she has transitioned to an entirely new self-identity, she has this intimate relationship with her own body because she was an athlete. So she took care of herself on a very attentive and intimate level. So the idea of having someone completely change their body and their identity and their gender, but also have so much knowledge of themselves biologically, it was so interesting. It was this sort of affectionate love of self that I just so enjoyed in that book. I'm going to stop talking about books now.
But that's why we're here.
Never.
So it's now 3:00 in the afternoon. Another book I want to tell you about.
We can spend all day doing this and be very happy about it.
All day.
I want you to tell me about books because I'm just like, I'm talking a lot. Tell me about the things that you read.
What do you find in your community that is what brings people in to either MM or FF or some variation of the LGBTQ romances?
A lot of the time, I think that it is exploration of self. Which is why I think it's so important to see characters who are bisexual, characters who are ace or aromantic or demisexual, or just exploring expressions of gender. Like I said, we have a language for these things now, where before there wasn't necessarily a clear expression of what that meant or how you even described it. I think that when you're looking for extensions of yourself and experiences that resonate with you, you're going to look at the books that more closely identify with who you are. I think for a long time, readers of every culture, background, sexuality, and identifier were asked to identify with a very specific archetype. And it was very straight, and it was cisgendered, and it was white, and it was often in a small town. Sometimes there were some cupcakes or maybe some dogs. Dogs are great. But there's this very narrow definition of romance that everyone was sort of expected to identify with, to find themselves in there. And like I said earlier, emotional resonance is common for every human. We all experience joy and grief and happiness and sorrow and love and excitement. And if you're like me, deeply nerding out about something, like these are common connections across people. But you shouldn't just have to identify and find yourself in this narrow definition. So when you have people who can say, I am looking for characters who are like this, it's so exciting for me to be able to say, yes, I know what book you read. In fact, here's a list of 10. Sorry, I'm a really expensive person to know. My bad. You get to see yourself. Like I said, everyone deserves to see themselves as worthy of love exactly the way they are. And that's what the genre needs to do. So I'm going to keep pushing until it does, or until I get tired. whichever one comes first.
So looking through the rest of this year and into 2019, what do you hope to see on the horizon for LGBTQ romance?
More lesbian romance in multiple genre settings, more representations of bisexual, asexual, queer identities, gender fluidity, gender exploration. I want to see more of that. I am the parent of 2 boys. They are, one of them just had a birthday, 11 and almost 13. My 13-year-old had a friend of his. I'm trying to make sure I get him as vague as possible. My 13-year-old had a friend of his come out to him in 4th grade. And this is not new to individuals who identified their sexuality. There was a committee meeting at the elementary school last year when my younger son was in 5th grade, because they were going to start doing the sexual education curriculum for the state and the county. And they wanted parents to get involved. So I was like, okay, I hate committees. I don't like being in rooms with groups of people. I hate going around in a circle and introducing myself. I'm very introverted, and I don't like any of this. I'm allergic to task forces, right? No. But I was like, I'm doing this because I want to be there to head off any parents that are like, you can't teach children about sex. Like, okay, I'm there to shoot that down. So I go in, and it is all parents who are like, what more can we do? What else is there? This isn't enough. And so it became a teacher-parent conversation of, here are the limitations of the curriculum. And one of the limitations of the curriculum was there is no discussion of sexuality. But one of the teachers in that grade is openly gay. And I was like, but kids at this age know. Like, my son had someone come out to him in 4th grade. This is 5th grade. Kids know, especially now that there's like a language for this. And he's like, oh, of course. I knew when I was in 3rd grade, but that's not something we can teach. And I was like, okay, so I guess I got to talk to the Capitol because we need to extend this curriculum. When you have people who are growing up with a language to express themselves and who they are in so many very specific ways, the genre fiction and the entertainment that they experience needs to reflect that accurately. So the only thing I can absolutely predict and demand is that I want more of everything, more of every letter. That how many letters are there now? Like LGBTQIA plus
plus. Yep. Yeah.
Who gets the enye? I want enye. Umlauts. You need umlauts. The little C with the curl underneath, the schwa, that too. Like, however long that chain of letters gets, that all needs to be there. So the more of it that there is, and the more diversity in culture that there is in every part of the genre, the better it is. Because otherwise the genre is in trouble, and I'm not here for that.
Sarah, I wanted to ask you about something. I think I've personally seen that the gay romance genre has certainly come to the attention, it seems, of the big 5 publishers, especially in the last year, where we've seen more and more. Not a whole lot, but more and more. Do you see that as I hate to use the word trend with air quotes, do you see that as a trend that's continuing into 2019?
Absolutely. Yes. I think there's fads, there's trends, and there's necessary changes. And what you want is for a trend like this to become part of the necessary change. Like, for example, zombie romance was a fad.
Yeah.
And romance featuring queer characters is its own like necessary change. So yes, absolutely. I see more of that. And I think that one of the things that I would hope is that there's more available for readers in every possible location where they find books. So not just digitally, but also in print. Like, I'm really excited that Dream Spinner has a print program. Like, that's so great. I hope that stores will pick them up. Like, that would be great. And libraries too. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I've lived in places with excellent public library systems, but I know some library systems are very much averse to featuring queer romance. And gosh, even this weekend, there was a letter being composed by a writer named Julie Cohen about a library who'd received complaints about their gay romance display as being like left-leaning, political, bad for people, crap, whatever. I don't know. I'm sorry I don't speak bigot as fluently as I probably should, but I don't. She's like, I need to email the library and let them know that that this librarian didn't do anything wrong and they should have this display. That is another benefit to more publishers entering queer romance, that they will be put in more libraries. And there's so much wrong with the way that books are distributed and who has access to what. Like, I can't fix that myself, but more and access, good, basically. And that was my math. That's all the math I can do. More access, good.
And we should point out, we should have done this back when we talked about diversity a little bit. Your stance on Hanukkah led you to write your own romance.
Yes. I was asked about it by a very much older gentleman in my synagogue this week. And he's like, so can you recommend a romance for me? And I was like, wow, I was not prepared for that question. Sir, I need coffee first. And then I told him about all the Jewish romances that I knew of. And he's like, I got to go get my wife. Hang on. And they're like probably in their 80s. That's great. So I have a very firm rule that I don't complain about something 3 times. I either have to do something about it or I have to stop complaining, but I can't complain about something. And every year around about October, all the Christmas romance starts showing up for review. And I was like, it's 8 days. There's candles and fried food. This is hella romantic, people. What the hell? I was like, all right, that's it. I have to write a Hanukkah romance. So I ended up self-publishing a Hanukkah romance called Lighting the Flames. It takes place at a Jewish summer camp in the winter. I used to work in overnight Jewish summer camping. My kids go to camp. My husband and I met in high school, but got together at a camp. So camp is like the thing that our family does. So I self-published it in December of 2014. And I'm really very proud of it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll stick that in the show notes with everything else so people can at least go check that out. Write an MM version of it.
Ooh. I was thinking about, like, do I want to write a sequel? Do I want to write something that's set in the summer at the same camp?
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
Well, Jay, who runs Joyfully Jay, she also is on the constant lookout for Hanukkah stories.
I know. She lives near me. We meet for giant sandwiches and potato chips. It's great.
That sounds awesome. We need to move to Maryland.
Come visit. I will take you out. It's so great.
Sarah, it has been awesome talking to you and getting your perspective on all this.
Thank you so much for having me.